I still remember the first time it happened, the moment that completely rewrote my life, though at the time I didn't realize it. I was standing in the living room, nervously adjusting my tie, feeling the weight of my own inadequacy pressing down on me. My wife, Lisa, was bustling around, perfectly calm, wearing a silk dress that shimmered under the evening light, while I felt like a shadow beside her. She had that look in her eyes, the one that said she had a plan, and that I was just a part of it. The weekend was supposed to be simple, a casual gathering with her friends, nothing more than drinks, laughter, and conversation. But as soon as the doorbell rang, everything shifted. Lisa opened the door with that mischievous smile I'd seen 1,000 times but never really understood. Her friends streamed in, all glamorous, confident, dripping with laughter and warmth, and then she turned to me with an expression I had never seen before. "Honey, tonight, you're going to be helping me," she said. That casual tone carried the weight of command, and instinctively I knew resistance was futile. I swallowed hard and nodded, pretending to understand what she meant. She handed me a tray of drinks, but before I could even step forward, she leaned close and whispered, "You're not just serving drinks tonight. You're serving me." That phrase, casual yet loaded, lingered in the air, and I felt my stomach twist in a knot of anticipation and fear. I didn't know then that serving Lisa's friends would become a mirror that reflected parts of me I had never acknowledged, parts one had buried under layers of doubt and masculinity I was never comfortable with. The night began innocuously enough. I poured champagne, offered snacks, and tried my best to blend into the background, feeling invisible, as though my own identity had been temporarily suspended. But then Lisa, with her playful but exacting precision, handed me a small, intricately folded package. "Open it," she instructed. My hands trembled slightly as I peeled the wrapping, revealing a delicate, frilly apron, pink and laced, perfectly feminine. My face must have turned crimson because she laughed softly and said, "Don't worry, it suits you. Trust me." I wanted to laugh it off, to tell her it was ridiculous, but the subtle command in her tone left no room for protest. That night, under the gaze of her friends, I put it on, feeling the soft fabric against my skin, my fingers brushing over the lace with an unfamiliar tenderness. Each motion was deliberate, each step I took a surrender, and yet I felt a strange thrill. Lisa's friends glanced at me, some raising eyebrows, some smiling knowingly, and I realized I had become the centerpiece of their amusement and curiosity. But it wasn't mockery, it was fascination, a kind of attention I had never received as a man. As the evening progressed, Lisa guided me through small tasks, pouring drinks with precision, arranging snacks on plates, even adjusting the seating. Every correction she offered, every gentle touch, made my heart race and my cheeks burn. I began to notice things about myself that I had never allowed myself to see, the way I moved when I was trying to appear demure, the subtle curve of my shoulders when I bent down, the softness in my voice when I responded to questions or jokes. Each moment was a revelation, and with each revelation, a part of my old self fell away. By the time her friends started sharing stories and laughter became louder, Lisa handed me a tray of desserts. I walked carefully, conscious of the delicate balance between grace and clumsiness, terrified of spilling anything. And then, without warning, one of her friends, Julia, reached over and touched my hand, lightly but with unmistakable warmth. "You're actually really good at this," she said, her voice tinged with amusement and admiration. I froze, unsure whether to laugh, blush, or feel ashamed, but Lisa's approving smile steadied me. I realized in that moment that something in me had shifted. I wasn't just her husband performing a role. I was something entirely new, someone exploring a side of myself that I had never dared to admit. The night stretched on, filled with subtle humiliations disguised as playful instructions, but also with moments of unexpected pride. I learned to fold napkins in precise patterns, to balance trays with elegance, to respond to compliments without flinching. And yet, behind all the laughter and teasing, there was an undercurrent of something deeper, a growing sense that I belonged in this space, not as the man I had always been, but as the person Lisa envisioned me to be. The final act of the evening came when she asked me to serve coffee in the sitting room. As I knelt down to arrange the cups on a tray, I caught my reflection in the polished surface of the table, and for the first time, I saw her vision in full. The apron, the soft curves, the delicate gestures, it was me, and it was beautiful. Her friends noticed too. There were smiles, soft whispers, and subtle glances that made me feel seen in a way I never had before. Lisa, standing behind me, whispered, "See? You're perfect like this." I felt my heart clench, a mixture of fear, pride, and something I didn't yet have words for. That night, I went to bed exhausted but strangely exhilarated. I had crossed a line I never thought I would, and yet I felt a profound sense of liberation. It was terrifying, it was awkward, but it was undeniably me. Over the next few weeks, Lisa found ways to deepen this new dynamic. She encouraged me to practice walking with more grace, to choose subtle accessories that complemented the apron, even to alter my voice slightly when serving or addressing her friends. Each instruction felt like a test, and each success felt like a triumph. There were times when I wanted to retreat, times when I questioned why I was doing this, but the thrill of discovery kept me moving forward. Serving her friends became a ritual, one that exposed vulnerabilities I had long hidden, but also unlocked strengths I hadn't realized I possessed. The first time one of her friends asked me to pour wine while kneeling, my instinct was to say no, to refuse. But then Lisa's eyes met mine, filled with a mixture of affection and command, and I obeyed. I knelt, hands steady, pouring with care, and the look of surprise and admiration on her friend's face sent a shiver through me. I realized then that the boundaries of my identity were not fixed. I could be masculine and still embrace these delicate, feminine expressions. I could be her husband and also her sissy maid. I could serve and be seen, be submissive yet strong in my own way. Every gathering, every whispered instruction, every playful correction became a stepping stone in my transformation. The apron, once a symbol of humiliation, became a symbol of identity, a reminder of the courage it took to embrace parts of myself I had long ignored. And with each step, I felt the old layers of shame peel away, replaced by a thrilling, intoxicating freedom. The lines between fear, pride, and desire blurred, leaving me suspended in a state of discovery I never wanted to end. By the time the next weekend arrived, I was ready. Ready to serve, ready to perform, ready to confront the lingering doubts in my mind. Lisa handed me a new apron, more elaborate than the first, embroidered with delicate patterns and ribbons that shimmered in the light. "Tonight," she said, "you're not just helping me. You're showing them who you truly are." My heart raced, and as I tied the ribbons around my waist, I realized she was right. I wasn't just her husband in a costume. I was a part of a world I had never allowed myself to enter, and it felt like coming home. That night, as I moved among her friends, serving drinks, arranging snacks, responding to compliments with a newfound confidence, I understood that this wasn't just about cross-dressing or obedience. It was about authenticity, about courage, about stepping into a version of myself that had always existed but had never been nurtured. Every smile, every approving glance, every whispered word of admiration was a reminder that transformation isn't just external, it begins in the mind, in the heart, in the willingness to embrace the parts of ourselves that we've hidden away. And so I served, I learned, I discovered, and I grew. I was still her husband, but I was also her sissy maid, a role that demanded grace, poise, and vulnerability. And in that space, surrounded by laughter, light, and acceptance, I finally began to understand who I was meant to be. It was terrifying, it was exhilarating, and it was mine. The next gathering felt different the moment I stepped into the house. Lisa's friends had a sharper curiosity in their eyes, subtle but unmistakable, as if they sensed I was no longer just performing, I was becoming. The first time I saw them, their laughter and chatter paused for a heartbeat when they noticed the way I carried myself. Gone was the hesitant, awkward man from last weekend. In his place was someone tentative yet confident, someone willing to inhabit this new identity fully, someone beginning to enjoy the delicate power in submission. Lisa, as always, was the orchestrator of every movement, her smile precise, a mixture of mischief and pride. "Tonight," she said, leaning close to whisper in my ear, "I want you to be perfect. Every gesture, every word, every glance, make them see you, not just me." Her words sent shivers down my spine. I nodded, trying to steady my racing heart, and she adjusted the apron around my waist, smoothing the delicate lace, her fingers brushing mine for a fleeting second that lingered longer than it should. The evening began with casual greetings and champagne, but the dynamics were different this time. Lisa's friends didn't just glance at me, they watched, assessed, smiled knowingly. Julia, who had complimented me before, leaned closer, her voice low but teasing. "You've changed," she said. "There's something in the way you move. It's graceful, almost hypnotic." I froze for a moment, unsure how to respond. Part of me wanted to deny it, to claim it was nothing, but another part, the part that had begun to bloom under Lisa's guidance, wanted to own it, to accept that this was real, that this was me. Lisa clapped her hands, pulling me into the center of the room with an easy authority that made my knees weak. "Let's see you serve," she said. "I want everyone to notice how perfectly you handle the tray tonight." My hands trembled slightly as I lifted the tray, the weight of expectation pressing on me, but I forced myself to breathe, to remember the lessons from last week. Step lightly, hold the tray steady, make eye contact, smile softly. Each small success sent waves of relief and pride coursing through me. Her friends whispered among themselves, some of them smiling, some clearly impressed, and I realized for the first time that attention didn't have to be terrifying, it could be affirming. As the night progressed, Lisa's instructions became more intricate, more personal. She had me arrange the seating in a way that maximized comfort and visual balance, adjust lighting to highlight her friends without exposing my nerves, and even pour tea in a manner that showcased elegance rather than haste. Every small task felt like a test, and every success reinforced a growing truth: I could do this. I could embody this version of myself without fear, without shame. But there were moments of tension too. At one point, her friend Megan asked me to kneel while handing her a cup of tea, and my instincts rebelled. I hesitated, and the weight of her gaze, coupled with Lisa's quiet encouragement, forced me to act. I lowered myself gracefully, hands steady, and met Megan's amused, approving smile. Something inside me shifted then, fear and embarrassment mingled with a surprising rush of confidence. I realized that submission didn't mean weakness, it could be powerful, a way to express authenticity in a world that had long demanded conformity. Lisa's friends began to interact with me more directly, teasing, questioning, and sometimes instructing me in ways that were playful yet revealing. They noticed the subtle changes in my posture, the softness in my voice, the careful attention to detail. Each comment, each glance, each laugh became a mirror, reflecting not the man I had been, but the person I was becoming. Julia, in particular, seemed fascinated, often observing me for longer than the others, her eyes curious and encouraging. "You're really embracing this," she said quietly at one point, and I felt a flush of pride and vulnerability that left me breathless. The more I served, the more I realized that Lisa's guidance wasn't about humiliation, it was about discovery. She was helping me uncover layers of myself I had buried under fear, expectation, and self-doubt. The apron, the delicate gestures, the submissive postures, they were all tools, a way to explore identity, courage, and acceptance. By the end of the evening, I wasn't just her sissy maid, I was an individual stepping into a world that had once seemed closed to me, a world where I could be both vulnerable and strong, delicate and commanding in my own way. After her friends left, Lisa held me close, her hands tracing the lace of the apron. "You did beautifully tonight," she said, her voice soft but unwavering. "Do you see it? This is you. Not me, not them, but you. And it's perfect." Her words echoed in my mind long after she kissed me goodnight. I realized that my journey was only beginning. Serving her friends had revealed something vital: my identity wasn't fixed, and embracing my sissy maid persona wasn't a loss of masculinity, it was an expansion of self, a courageous leap into authenticity. In the following days, I began to notice subtle changes in myself beyond the gatherings. I moved differently, spoke differently, and even thought differently. There was a lightness in my steps, a softness in my interactions, a patience and grace I had never cultivated before. Lisa encouraged me gently, celebrating small victories, guiding me through moments of hesitation. It was a delicate dance between encouragement and expectation, and I thrived in the space it created. Then came the evening when Lisa decided it was time to deepen the experience. She presented me with a new uniform, more intricate, more feminine, with ribbons, lace, and subtle embroidery that shimmered in the light. "Tonight," she said, "you'll serve them fully. No hesitation, no fear. Just you, entirely." My stomach tightened at the thought, but I trusted her. I had learned to trust her guidance, and in doing so, I had begun to trust myself. When her friends arrived, I could feel their curiosity sharpen, their eyes drawn to the subtle elegance of my movements, the way I carried the tray, the slight tilt of my head, the softness in my voice. I served with precision, anticipating their needs, offering subtle smiles and nods. Every gesture was scrutinized, yet I found joy in the scrutiny. It wasn't mockery, it was recognition. It was validation that this identity, this version of myself, had value. The night took an unexpected turn when Julia, emboldened by the playful atmosphere, asked me to demonstrate how I polished silverware. I hesitated, feeling the weight of her gaze, but Lisa's encouraging glance reminded me that hesitation was part of the process. I took a deep breath, knelt gracefully, and began polishing, each motion careful, deliberate, and infused with a quiet pride. Her friends watched, some whispering admiration, some smiling openly, and I realized that for the first time, I was performing not out of fear, but out of choice. By the time the evening ended, I had transformed entirely, not just physically, in the apron and subtle accessories, but emotionally and mentally. I had crossed thresholds I never imagined, faced vulnerabilities I had long avoided, and discovered courage, poise, and authenticity in a form I had once dismissed. Lisa hugged me as the last guest left, her face radiant. "Do you feel it?" she asked softly. "Do you see what you've become?" I nodded, tears pricking my eyes. I did. And it was liberating, terrifying, exhilarating, and deeply beautiful all at once. That night, alone in my room, I removed the apron but couldn't remove the feeling of transformation that lingered. Every gesture, every movement, every interaction had left an imprint. I realized that this journey wasn't just about serving Lisa or her friends, it was about discovering who I truly was, embracing a part of myself I had long denied. And as I lay down, exhausted yet elated, I understood that this was only the beginning. The next weekend brought a new challenge, one that neither Lisa nor I could have fully predicted. Her friends were coming over again, but this time the atmosphere felt heavier, more charged. I could sense it the moment I walked into the house. There was an intensity in their gaze, a quiet anticipation that made my stomach twist with both excitement and anxiety. Lisa, radiant as ever in a soft silk dress, gave me a brief, reassuring smile before handing me my tray. "Tonight," she said softly, "we're taking it further." I didn't fully understand what she meant, and the uncertainty sent a shiver down my spine. The first hour was deceptively casual, the same laughter and chatter, the same polite compliments. I moved among them, serving drinks, arranging plates, and responding to gentle teasing, but there was a new edge in their eyes, a subtle probing that made me hyper-aware of every gesture, every word, every nuance of my posture. I could feel their curiosity examining me, weighing me, drawing lines around the person I was becoming. Then came the moment that changed everything. Julia, who had always been the most encouraging, leaned forward, her eyes sparkling with mischief. "Lisa tells me you're getting very good at this," she said softly, her tone teasing but with an underlying seriousness. I felt my cheeks flush as all eyes turned toward me. I tried to respond casually, to downplay my nerves, but my voice caught, a faint tremor betraying my anxiety. Lisa's hand brushed my shoulder, grounding me, and I realized that this wasn't just about serving, it was a performance, a test, a declaration of identity. Lisa's friends began to involve me more directly, asking for demonstrations, small tasks that required finesse and poise. They asked me to fold napkins in intricate patterns, to arrange glasses in perfect symmetry, to carry trays in ways that emphasized elegance. Every small failure felt like a sting, every success like a quiet triumph. And through it all, I noticed something remarkable. I wasn't just learning to perform these tasks, I was discovering parts of myself that I had never allowed to surface. Grace, patience, subtlety, and even a quiet confidence were emerging, all under the delicate, watchful guidance of Lisa and her friends. At one point, Lisa asked me to kneel and arrange a set of glasses on the low coffee table. My instinct was to hesitate, but she gave me a soft, encouraging nod. I knelt, hands steady, careful to place each glass with precision, feeling the lace of my apron brush against my knees. Julia watched me closely, her expression a mixture of curiosity and approval. "You've really changed," she whispered. "There's something in the way you move, something honest and delicate and strong all at once." The words caught me off guard, and I felt a flush of warmth spread through my chest. No one had ever described me this way before. I was used to hiding, blending in, masking any vulnerability. But now, under the soft, scrutinizing eyes of Lisa's friends, I was exposed, and yet I felt more alive than ever. It was a strange paradox. In submission, I was powerful. In serving, I was seen. As the evening progressed, Lisa decided to introduce a more structured element to the gathering. She asked me to act as a central figure, not just serving, but guiding certain interactions, offering drinks, and subtly managing the flow of the evening. The responsibility was daunting, and my anxiety spiked, but I also sensed a thrill I couldn't ignore. I was becoming more than her sissy maid. I was becoming a part of the social rhythm, a participant, a presence that mattered. There were moments of sheer terror. At one point, Megan requested that I carry an entire tray of delicate desserts across the room while kneeling slightly, a task that demanded precision and balance. I froze for a heartbeat, imagining the embarrassment if I stumbled, if I dropped anything. But Lisa's calm, steady gaze reminded me that I could do this. I took a deep breath, moved carefully, and succeeded without incident. Her friends clapped softly, and for the first time, I felt a surge of pride not just in completing the task, but in embracing the vulnerability and trust it required. As the night wore on, the playful teasing intensified, but it was tempered by genuine warmth and encouragement. Lisa's friends began to ask questions about how I felt, what it was like to take on this role, and how it had changed me. Each answer I gave, hesitant at first but growing more confident, revealed new layers of my personality. I realized that the Sissy Maid persona wasn't a mask, it was a doorway to authenticity, a path to understanding and accepting parts of myself I had long ignored. Lisa, watching quietly from the side, finally pulled me aside toward the end of the evening. "Do you feel it?" she asked, her voice soft but insistent. "Do you see how much you've grown?" I nodded, tears threatening to spill as I recognized the truth in her words. I had crossed lines I never thought I would, faced fears I had buried deep inside, and emerged stronger, more self-aware, and more in touch with my own identity. The final moment of the night was the most revealing. Lisa asked me to stand in the center of the living room, holding a tray of drinks, while her friends circled around, observing. "Show them who you are," she whispered. My heart pounded in my chest as I held the tray, taking deliberate, elegant steps, feeling the soft lace of my apron, the careful positioning of my hands, the subtle tilt of my head. The room fell silent, and I realized that for the first time, I was performing not out of fear or obedience, but out of choice, out of desire to embrace and reveal who I truly was. Her friends smiled, some whispering admiration, some nodding approvingly, and I felt a profound sense of belonging. I wasn't just Lisa's sissy maid, I was someone who had discovered courage, grace, and authenticity in a form that felt terrifyingly new and yet perfectly right. Lisa's hand on my shoulder grounded me as I completed the final gesture, placing the tray down with precision. "Perfect," she said softly. "Absolutely perfect." That night, alone in my room, I removed the apron but couldn't remove the sense of transformation that had taken hold. Every gesture, every smile, every subtle interaction had left an imprint on my soul. I realized that this journey wasn't just about serving Lisa or her friends, it was about discovering who I was when fear, shame, and expectation were stripped away. And as I lay down, exhausted yet exhilarated, I understood that the next chapter would demand even more courage, vulnerability, and willingness to explore the deepest parts of myself. The following weekend arrived with an intensity that made my heart pound before I even stepped inside the house. Lisa's friends were coming over again, but this time I could feel the energy shift the moment I crossed the threshold. There was an unspoken anticipation in their gazes, a subtle excitement, a sense that they were about to witness something more than a performance. They were about to see me transformed, fully, undeniably, into the version of myself I had only begun to explore. Lisa greeted me first, her smile radiant and commanding all at once. She held a new apron in her hands, even more elaborate than the last, with delicate embroidery, ribbons that shimmered under the light, and soft lace that brushed against her fingertips. "Tonight," she said softly, "you're going to show them everything." Not just the tasks, not just the gestures, but the real you. My stomach twisted with a mix of anxiety and exhilaration. I had come a long way, but the thought of being fully exposed, fully seen, still made me tremble. As the evening began, I moved among her friends with the poise and precision I had cultivated over the past weeks. Every step was deliberate, every gesture carefully measured, every glance intentional. I poured drinks, arranged snacks, adjusted seating, and responded to questions with a soft confidence I had never known I possessed. Her friends watched me closely, whispering, smiling, and sometimes leaning forward in curiosity. I could feel their attention like a spotlight, illuminating every nuance of my movements, every subtle shift in posture. Then came the pivotal moment. Julia, always the most perceptive, stepped forward and asked me to demonstrate how I set the table for tea. My heart raced, but Lisa's calm presence at my side reminded me to breathe. I knelt gracefully, arranging cups, saucers, and silverware with care, my hands steady, my movements deliberate. Her friends circled around, their eyes fixed on me, and for the first time, I realized I wasn't performing for approval or validation, I was performing because it felt right. This was me, in all my vulnerability and grace, fully present and fully alive. Megan, who had teased me gently in previous gatherings, smiled warmly. "You've grown so much," she said softly. "It's incredible to see you embrace this. There's a confidence in your submission, a kind of power that's mesmerizing." The words sent a shiver down my spine. I had never imagined that submission could be a source of strength, that embracing this delicate persona could reveal courage and authenticity I had long suppressed. I felt a surge of pride, tempered by vulnerability, and it was intoxicating. Lisa guided me through the rest of the evening with gentle, precise instructions. She asked me to kneel while serving desserts, to offer drinks with subtle elegance, to respond to compliments with humility yet grace. Every task, every moment, became a mirror reflecting parts of myself I had never acknowledged: the patience, the poise, the courage to embrace vulnerability, the ability to balance fear with pride. I realized that this was no longer about her friends or even about Lisa's control, it was about me discovering who I truly was when stripped of expectation and judgment. Then came the moment I had feared and longed for in equal measure. Lisa asked me to step into the center of the room, tray in hand, while her friends observed. "Show them who you are," she whispered. My heart pounded, my hands shook, but I took a deep breath and began to move. Each step, each gesture, each tilt of my head was deliberate, elegant, and infused with authenticity. I was no longer hiding, no longer performing out of fear. I was present, fully, entirely, and it felt like a revelation. Her friends whispered among themselves, their expressions a mixture of admiration and curiosity. Julia's eyes lingered on me, soft and approving, and I realized for the first time that I was being seen not as a joke, not as a curiosity, but as a person who had embraced a truth long hidden. The tray I carried was no longer just a prop, it was a symbol of transformation, of courage, of identity. I placed it down carefully, rising to stand fully upright, and the room seemed to hold its breath. Lisa stepped forward and wrapped her hands around mine, her touch grounding me. "Do you feel it?" she asked softly. "Do you see who you've become?" I nodded, tears threatening to fall as I recognized the truth. I had faced fear, vulnerability, and judgment, and emerged stronger, more authentic, and more alive than ever before. The Sissy Maid persona was no longer a role imposed upon me, it was a part of me I had chosen to embrace, a part that revealed courage, grace, and identity I had long suppressed. Her friends applauded softly, not in mockery, but in genuine acknowledgement. "You're incredible," Julia said quietly. "Watching you embrace this, it's inspiring. You've taken something that could have been embarrassing and turned it into art, into authenticity." The words wrapped around me like a warm embrace, and I realized that my journey wasn't just about serving Lisa or her friends, it was about discovering and accepting the parts of myself I had denied for so long. The evening ended with Lisa's friends departing, their smiles and whispers lingering in the air. Alone with Lisa, I removed the apron, but the feeling of transformation remained, indelible and profound. She held me close, her lips brushing my ear. "You did beautifully," she whispered. "Do you understand? This isn't just a game or a role. This is you. And it's perfect. I nodded, tears slipping silently down my cheeks, overwhelmed by the journey I had undertaken and the truth I had embraced. In the days that followed, I noticed the subtle changes in myself extending beyond the gatherings. I walked differently, spoke differently, interacted differently. There was a new patience in my voice, a quiet confidence in my gestures, a sense of authenticity that had long eluded me. The Sissy Maid persona was no longer confined to evenings with Lisa and her friends, it had become a lens through which I could see and accept myself fully. Looking back, I realized that the transformation had been about more than clothing, more than roles, more than performance. It had been about courage, the courage to face vulnerability, to embrace authenticity, to step into an identity that society might not always understand. It had been about love, the love and guidance of Lisa, the acceptance of her friends, and most importantly, the love I had begun to cultivate for myself. Serving her friends as her Sissy Maid had been terrifying, humbling, exhilarating, and liberating all at once. I had discovered a version of myself I never thought possible, one that balanced grace with strength, submission with courage, vulnerability with authenticity. I had learned that true transformation isn't about hiding or pretending, it's about embracing, revealing, and owning every layer of who you are. And as I looked at myself in the mirror that night, wearing the soft lace apron for no one but myself, I finally understood. I wasn't just Lisa's Sissy Maid. I was someone reborn, someone who had faced fear, embraced vulnerability, and discovered the freedom and beauty of authenticity. I was me, fully, unapologetically, and irrevocably changed.